This was built by the third Earl, wasn't it?
Yes, it was,
Yes,
yeah. And Vanbrugh designed as well. So we'll go up there and take a closer look.
At the Temple of the Four Winds, we carried out another test of the new visitor experience app, which is in development.
So we've come to this viewing point, and there's nothing here, but there is something here,
right,
digitally.
Yes.
And then we launch the AR, and we hold the phone up, and
oh my goodness!
So now there's an information point there, and I can click on that. Click on that.
There we go.
There we go. Vanbrugh's Temple. There we go. And then it gives me some pictures of it in the past.
Yes.
And then I can scroll down, and it gives me the information about it, what it was built for.
And then you can find out so much more information, but also it includes sort of pictures, sort of now and then. So this is fantastic. It's a real immersive experience.
Yeah, it is. It's immersive. It becomes a virtual tour guide. It's on your device.
Wonderful, because I think that it's when you come out onto the wider landscape, having the accessibility here, you might think, ooh, I can't access it. We've just accessed that perfectly. And being able to learn.
Yeah, it's really important. And there's so much learning here, like you said, and it might be about history, it might be about the built environment, heritage, it can be about the natural environment, it can be about farming.
Yes.
So it becomes an educational experience.
Well done. I'm excited to download the app.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jasper.
We've got a cow looking longingly at our car. We should probably get back in before it gets licked to death.
Well, yes, I have a fear of cows, Jasper, so I'm a bit nervous. At least my door is on this side, the passenger.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We'll get back in and we'll cruise down.
Okay, fantastic.
Back over the bridge.
The ongoing work to expand the visitor experience both within the house and across the estate at Castle Howard is so inspiring. The reality of living in and managing historic houses has changed dramatically over the past 100 years or so. And thank goodness, the role of women in these houses has changed beyond recognition. Eleanor Brooke Peet, curator of collections and archives at Castle Howard, has studied the lives of 3 women in the Howard family, 3 countesses of Carlisle, who each in different ways made a huge impact. These books that you've taken out of the archives today, they are from one of those strong women, aren't they?
Yeah, so she's one of my favourites. This is Isabella, and she was the second wife of the 4th Earl of Carlisle.
Right.
And they marry in 1743. His first wife had passed away, sadly, as had his heirs. And so he was, was quite eager to remarry and to hopefully have another male heir. So he marries Isabella, but she's a good 20 years his younger. We don't have much in the archive surviving in terms of her correspondence, but we do have these 2 documents which really give a bit of an insight into what her life was like and what was she doing at Castle Howard. These are her household accounts, and she starts this in the year after she marries, so 1744, and we can see here her manuscript, I Carlisle, her book, an abstract of the house accounts. And she explains here that it's an account of the household expense during the times that they're both at Castle Howard and when they're away. And in the first few pages, she's listing all of the things that the household is spending its money on.
Right.
So from the wines that are being stocked, the beers, the meats that are brought in to feed the table. And after a few pages, it goes on for several years, it's clear she gets the idea of what she's doing. But in these first few pages, you get this sense of a young woman who's been thrust into the world of being a chatelaine, so being the head of the female head of the household, and what that role entails.
Yes. Fantastic. And so this, how many years does this?
This runs up to about 1758, which is when the fourth Earl sadly passes away. So it encompasses her time here as Countess of Carlisle.
The Earl of Carlisle, her husband, dies in 1758. So how long was the marriage then?
About 15 years.
About 15 years,
Yeah.
so not that long, but did she produce an heir?
She certainly did.
Right,
Yes. So
she did, okay. So she did her duty, which is back then was obviously very important to be able to pass on. Luckily, times have hopefully changed since then, but I know that there was, of course, that enormous pressure to be able, during that period, to be able to produce an heir so that the heir could then take on, again, historic houses like Castle Howard.
It is, and you get a real sense because she produces a couple of girls initially before she finally produces the future fifth Earl, and you get a sense from everything else that she's doing during this time that the pressure was off then. She's produced the heir, she can now crack on with other things that she's interested in, such as redecoration and buying, sort of lovely things like porcelain, adding those to the collection.
Right, and then after the death of the fourth Earl, what happened to Isabel?
Well, she ends up marrying again pretty quickly, which is a surprise. There's a lot of commentary at the time where people are admiring her as a very beautiful widow and very full of the joys of life. So she's clearly enjoying her widowhood, spending a lot of time in London. But within a year, she's remarried to Sir William Musgrave.
Okay. Does she stay here?
I think Castle Howard still remains her home. She, of course, still has her children. Her son, the future fifth Earl, is very young. He's only 10 years old when his father dies. And so the house essentially goes into trusteeship. So she still uses it as a home, but her focus obviously turns a bit further out to the rest of the world. Now, she makes this marriage. It turns out to be quite an unwise one. They're very ill-suited in terms of their temperament. She's very outgoing and wants to, enjoy life, whereas Musgrave was a bit more shy and retiring. We're not entirely sure what attracted them in the first place.
Opposites attract, maybe? I don't know, but yes.
Unfortunately, it turned out to not be one that lasted, and within 10 years, their marriage has effectively broken down, and Isabella ends up taking herself off to the continent.
And then this book to my left.
Yeah, so this is known as Isabella's recipe book. And on the front we see my book of receipts, which is a way of saying recipes.
Recipes, I know. I do love that word. I hope it comes back in fashion.
Yeah, you should just start it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And it's a really fascinating book. We think that she probably keeps this as a sort of a journal throughout her life. There's no dating within it, but it was likely started while she was still here at Castle Howard, and then she writes in French in some of the passages, so it probably continues when she's on the continent as well. But when we say recipes, that's very much, it's not just in the modern sense of recipe, if you think of a recipe for a meal, but it's also recipes for medicines. And so quite often when people were relying upon home remedies to be able to solve problems that they have. But then there are also recipes or notes relating to the household as well. So again, you get this insight, much like through the household accounts, you get this insight into what was she as a chatelaine thinking about. But to show you some of my favourite recipes, so we have here some of the medicinal ones. So you have your everyday ones, so a receipt for a cold.
Fantastic. There's snail water there, is that right?
Snail water? I'm not sure what snail water is for.
It literally says, take a gallon of milk and 100 of snails, then wash them very clean and house them. I think that says house them. Bruise them, well done. Then put them into the milk and let them just boil up, do we think? Yeah. Then then put them into a still, and to every still put one good handful of something mint.
Spearmint, perhaps.
Yeah, spearmint, and one handful of something hood.
Something like that.
Something like that. Must be an herb of some sort.
But then there are no instructions for what to do with it afterwards. And what are you using it for?
What is that for? Is that right, what is that for?
It's a mystery. One
It is-
assumes that because there are no instructions about what to do with it next, that it must have been quite obvious what to do with it
This
next.
is fantastic.
But then you also have, for the lips, here you have essentially what's like a lip balm.
Yes.
And a cold. You know, these things have never really changed. We all have these same illnesses today and need remedies for them. So that's essentially what they're dealing with.
This is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. How fun
So
just to go through this.
now if we go here, so onto our food recipes here, and it's a really interesting insight into the way that people were eating during the mid to late 18th century. All the way through here, you have a lot of preserving.
Yes,
So it's taking fruits of the seasons or you know, anything that's available and making sure that you're going to be able to fill that hunger gap during the winter and enjoy things out of season
Yes.
as well. So when we move through, we can see there's lots of things that are very very approachable. So you have a marmalade of quinces. You have little queen's cakes here.
Yes, lovely.
And many of these recipes are, so we've got gingerbread as well.
Yeah.
You could
Yes.
read that today and you could probably reproduce that.
Yes. I do love this last one. To make cowslip wine.
There are about 5 recipes for cowslip wine in here. I can't even imagine what it tastes like, but it must have been delicious.
It must have been delicious. So thank you so much, Eleanor. And then there's a couple more strong women here that you really do focus on as well, aren't there?
There are. So Georgiana, who was the 6th Countess and joined the family around about 1801. She marries the future 6th Earl of Carlisle and comes to live at Castle Howard. And her bedroom still exists here and is still named after her even today.
Right.
So she had a huge impact on the family. And then more recently, Rosalind, the 9th Countess,
Okay.
who's running the house from about 1880 to 1920.
Oh my goodness. It was so interesting to see Countess Isabella's book of receipts. And it reminds me of how in my own family, Alberta, the 9th Countess of Sandwich, kept all of her recipes. And recently, I've started testing them out in the kitchen, so I couldn't help but make a little request while I was at Castle Howard. I met up with Nick Howard in the private family kitchen, where he had been cooking up something rather special.
This channel is part of the History Hit network.